Welcome to the Authorpreneur Podcast, where we talk to authors and business owners about how they are using books to market themselves and their businesses. I'm your host, Chris Green, and in each episode of the Authorpreneur Podcast, we talk to a successful author and business owner to see exactly how they are using their books and author status to grow their businesses and serve their customers. We'll talk about what's working, the benefits of becoming a published author, and we may even come up with some creative new marketing strategies. In this episode of the Authorpreneur Podcast, I talk with Nick Lorizio, author of Digitalization, the New Normal of the Post-Pandemic World. Nick is a distinguished business advisor, acclaimed author, and innovative entrepreneur renowned for his profound expertise in the realms of cutting-edge technologies, digital transformation, and cybersecurity. His fervent passion for information systems led him to the creation of AstuteTechnologists, a premier online hub that bridges industry professionals, offering them essential insights and best practices in digital transformation and cybersecurity. With a career marked by collaboration with an array of businesses from nimble startups to esteemed Fortune 500 corporations, Nick has dedicated himself to guiding these organizations in refining their strategies, amplifying brand loyalty, enhancing customer retention, and cultivating enduring client relationships. His deep-seated knowledge and experience serve as the foundation for his ability to pinpoint and tackle the ubiquitous challenges companies face during digital transition, proposing strategic, impactful solutions that harness the comprehensive capabilities of information technology. His literary contributions further solidify his status as a pivotal figure in the tech landscape. He has authored a series of influential books focusing on digital transformation, cybersecurity, and the forefront of technological advancements. These works are celebrated for their authoritative content and practical insights, acting as indispensable resources for businesses navigating the dynamic tech ecosystem. As a speaker and author, Nick is committed to disseminating his rich knowledge and insights, motivating a broad audience to embark on their digital transformation journeys and leverage the transformative power of technology to fulfill their objectives. His visionary leadership and dedicated mentorship have established him as a trusted figure and thought leader in digital transformation, continually inspiring and steering businesses towards triumph in the digital era. I really think you're going to enjoy this episode.
I had a funny conversation with somebody today about dropping the F-bomb, right? I don't want to eliminate a massive audience, so could you use AI to filter out curse words? Sure. And, people swear at work all the time. I've worked at large enterprises and it is what it is, but I don't want to eliminate younger audiences or, people of certain religious backgrounds. I was talking to somebody from Qatar recently and, they don't like swearing too much over there. But could you have two versions? I mean, and most of it gets clipped up today anyway, right? So, it's cool with me and I'd rather be myself than
That's an interesting use of AI. If you had a podcast that you made and you almost had a filter to say, look, if you're in this country or this region, or if you can detect, these characteristics of the user, then apply these filters, to where when do you actually know you're actually hearing the unfiltered version of something? And in theory, you won't actually know.
No, it's crazy. And my voice is damn near perfect, right? And AI has replicated that so well that, I like to have the video on so you can kind of see my face and stuff. But yeah, it totally can catch, with real accuracy, the curse words. And then I'm sure it could target, just like we add target. I'm sure that you could say if I'm, going to this demographic, it's going to be this version, right? Just like with books. And that's a good segue into, how I just sold a bunch of books to Germany and I'm looking into, how do we translate that? Because how cool is AI for that purpose? I can now reach new markets easily.
Would you trust AI to translate your book? Especially because yours is a little more on a technical, it better be right kind of topic.
Right, but I did intend it for mass market, but it is more a little bit more technical and dry in that sense. But yeah, that's tough to say, and that's why when you had the interview with Putin and Tucker Carlson, there was such a delay in their speech, right? And they couldn't pick up on things like humor or is he telling a joke? Is he trying to be funny or because there's a lot of nuances to language and it's so fascinating. However, I trust my version of AI, AstuteAdvisor. It's a private instance of ChatGPT and I feel that it doesn't have any malicious code in it, and has good intentions. And I feel like when you're still a nimble, newer startup, you have to take some risk and just go for it.
Yeah, I've got a great question for you on AI, but before we get to that, I want to make sure people understand. Like you wrote this book, you wrote it in 2021. Was it a little bit of a response to kind of the acceleration of a lot of digitization stuff because of COVID, or was it kind of intentional? Like, hey, I have this business, and I think this would be a great way to, acquire new customers and establish authority, or maybe even a mix of all that.
It was a both. I saw the massive rise of personal branding, and my company at the time, I had an opportunity to go speak. This is when an app called Clubhouse came out, if
Yep,
you're familiar.
I remember the
So
hype for Clubhouse. Yeah.
yeah, and it's kind of like fallen down because now there's Rumble and all these other alternative platforms. But Elon was on there having conversations, and all this stuff was happening really, really fast. And I got invited to go do a talk. My company was like, "You can't do that," and that was kind of the start of it in my head of like, I'm doing this kind of like, it helps the personal brand, it helps the company, it could lead to sales opportunities, lead to new customers. Like, why can't I do this? You're not ready. You haven't been trained. I've been trained my whole life. I've been born into a sales family. Like, I was going to the country club with dad, and he's like, make sure you say this and say that, so I know how to handle myself, right? And it's like being a Kennedy or something, they're just naturally, they just know what to do, right? It's like you're kind of.
What was the worst case scenario they were worried about?
I don't know. I think it's they didn't even know what the app was. It was new, right? And companies, even though I was at mid-market at the time, companies take a longer, there's always process and politics. And, and that's why the startup world I found to be really fun. And I mean, it's kind of crazy, but you can jump on things really quickly, right? And sometimes it might not work, but, at larger organizations, some of that gets slowed, and that's the drawback to being in a large corp. Sure, health benefits, but now there's Obamacare, and I mean, yeah, there's some stuff that there's more stability if you have less of an appetite for risk. However, I was bummed, man. I worked hard to land that opportunity. My book was out, and I saw this stuff coming my way, and I kept having to turn it down, right? So it was like, cool, I published the book, right? And I had help through a mutual friend of ours. And, shout out to Book Thinkers. And, it was like all this other stuff was coming after it. And I couldn't, yeah. Oh, hell yeah. I have a copy.
Everybody's got a copy. It's the perfect companion book for
No.
every book.
Oh, I got this.
And I keep telling Nick I'm jealous of this book because this is the book that you can add as a complementary product to literally any book. I think he's starting to figure that out, and he's like, "Oh, you're right. Like this is I'm positioned really well with this book." Like, yeah, you are.
Well, yeah, and I think that's huge, and you have to protect your idea somehow today, and and I think it's great to have a tangible product when you're starting out, and you can play around with pricing. You can start to figure out your taxes. Books are a great way, and fortunately, with freedom of speech, very little regulation around that topic. It's very sensitive for Americans to
I
not
haven't
allow.
tested that. I've had a few ideas for books that were like, I wonder if Amazon would let this ride, and even if legally, like they would have to if I took that route. Some topics I'm like, yeah, that might be controversial because often controversy will sell, like polarization will sell. And I'm like, well, maybe I don't want to go down that road just to see if I can kind of go viral and get like a big royalty check. Because odds are you're not. And I don't want to lose my Amazon account because I value it too much because I love self-publishing and the power. But it sounds like you kind of figured out the same thing of like, wait a minute. There's such an advantage to having a physical product instead of a downloadable PDF or an ebook or a free download. It's like it's a different level of like, oh, this is on Amazon as a physical book. I'm going to pay attention to this guy. Like, and that once you have attention, more doors are going to open.
I'll tell you this: you won't see a large Fortune 5,000 plus company publishing a physical book. They're all ebooks, right? because they want to be able to go back, edit, and tweet. If you put something into real paper, you mean business. Like, you know what you're talking about. You're coming off as an authority figure, and it's so I think that's just an astonishing fact right there. Is have you seen right? You see all these ebooks coming out into into the marketing right around the same time that I released my physical book. This became a very popular marketing tactic, and none of them have published like an actual book, right? Because
do you think it's because they think it's too hard or it's too expensive, or I see a lot of the PDFs and I download a bunch kind of as a trial, like let me see what your funnel kind of is, like what's your offer here, and they're like 9-page PDF ebooks, and I'm like, oh, this is not like, come on, man, 9 pages, it's like 4.5 pieces of paper, like
written
that doesn't
by
count.
ChatGPT, right?
Yeah, it's half graphics, it's half graphics, half self promotion, and no actual ebook. It's just to collect emails, and then you get into a marketing campaign, which I understand. But holy smokes, I feel like as a society, as a consumer, we're getting past that. We're almost like, if that's what you're doing, we're not impressed. And I worry that, like, I think some companies are going to figure this out. They're going to start basically putting like a video sales letter into a book and call it a book instead of, look, I'm just going to establish that I know what the heck I'm talking about and publish a book and not worry about what's going to be like in 5 years. I've got some of my early books, they're completely wrong, right? Just because they're outdated, because I'm quoting Amazon policy, which, and fee structures, which naturally change over time, which I really just didn't think about at the time. But I also remind people, like, there are books out there that say Bill Clinton is president, right? Like it's okay. Like, they're just old. We just don't read them as if they're new anymore. And, with self-publishing, you can just update as well. Like for your book, did you write it very intentionally to where, like, holy smokes, it's only been 3 years? However, there are a lot of changes since then.
Yeah, I mean, I actually republished. I wrote a version 2 with ChatGPT in like 48 hours of nonstop coffee drinking. So, it's like, and that added, I think, like 50 additional pages. And
so are the first editions like super valuable now?
I think so. I think they're worth like $500, especially if they're signed.
You got to track them down.
If you can find one. I know Nick has some. I sent him like 25.
It's probably his most valuable book in his library right now.
Well, it was funny. Maybe that or 48 Laws hardcover is super valuable. That's worth like 250. Or last time I checked, that's a lot of money.
I think there's more room. I didn't think we get this far into conversation so quickly, but I do think there's a big opportunity for more expensive books. Like if you sold a book for $250, which is the highest price through self-publishing right now, that included a 1-hour consultation, right, which is similar to what you're offering on your website, to say, look, buy this book, I'll give you a 1-hour consultation, and if you put this in an ad or even just social media, and say, hey, if you're not happy, I will give you a full refund and you can keep the book. And of course, that's going to take you an hour of your time, and delivering the book would probably cost you about $9 from Amazon. But as long as your refund and return rate is incredibly low, which if you have a quality product and know what the heck you're talking about, and I've got to believe the people who are willing to shell out $250 for a book probably aren't doing it as like an instant kind of impulse purchase, right? So like they kind of know what they're getting, and then as long as you deliver quality on your call, hey, you're making basically $200 an hour after all these fees. And now you have a book on Amazon with 87 5-star reviews, and people are like, who is this Nick guy with a 250? Like now people are really interested. And this is all things that you can test, you can try. Maybe it doesn't work, so you stop doing it. But it's something that hardly anybody even has on their radar. And I mean, it sounds very perfect for you, honestly, because of your business and your offers already.
Yeah, and no, it was cool. A very similar thing happened when I launched my WeFunder campaign, which is crowdfunding. So like the community investing, and you hope that the people that invest can all make 10x whatever they put in, right? And that's the goal, so that the people all feel involved and engaged. And I actually had a couple people put like $100 in, and they get a free book. So I mailed them a book, and you sign it. And
sure.
and I had different tiers, like, oh, if you put $500, you could get like a swag pack or whatever, and
give it 20 bucks.
Yeah. Or whatever. Yeah. I mean, I think the minimum for that is 100, but, and you actually, there's a lot of interesting things with crowdfunding, which it's kind of lost some popularity, in recent years. Which I've come to find out, many people don't want the middleman all the time if they can go direct, especially deeper pocket. Like as you have conversations with people with deeper pockets, they're just like, prove it to me and I'll write you a check.
Dude, that's me.
Right.
I got burned on a few
Yeah.
Kickstarters to where I'm like, that's
Yeah.
awesome. And when it's ready, I will pay full price. But no, I'm not
Right.
interested in, I might save 20% or 50% and maybe get it. No, like if you actually make it to market, I'm in full price.
Right.
You know, like
And they,
so
yeah.
I'm in that exact same boat.
And they'll take, WeFunder takes fees, and then there's all kinds of nuances and regulations that way. So if you can avoid that and just go like I'm bootstrapped, to the like gills, like this, so I mean, that's what I've done. And now it's just growing off the customer base, and right. And it's like, great, you get that first recurring client, because that's ideal, is you want people to come back each month and stick with you, right? And not just do the one-time consulting. But I think that the way that I view that, in which I'm doing about 2 to 3 of those per week, but it's unpredictable. And as I start to look at my business from more of a finance lens and less of like working in the business, because I want to scale. And the more that I look at it from that lens, I'm like, I can't predict next week. I can't predict the following week. And that's really scary to somebody who's having that mindset. So that to me is really just an introductory session or call where I learn more about them, their business, their objectives, and kind of develop a game plan. Like, let's get you from A to Z. However, I want to make sure that I tie back in a recurring service attached to it. My proposal.
Right. So is that like a piece that you maybe say is missing in your business, of like a steady flow of inbound, interested customers?
Yeah, I've definitely, in my space in the IT world, the MSP, I'm not sure how familiar you are, and I want to keep it kind of book focused and everything. But in my world in the IT space, there's 20,000 IT managed service providers, which are essentially resellers in the United States alone, which is crazy, right? And
How
for
many of them have
me,
books?
none. I mean, they have ebooks. I mean, that's cool, but none of them have books, because books change the world. I mean, so it's pretty powerful, and I saw a lot of problems happening in the space, and like many people, I saw PE come in and buy everything up when businesses close their doors. So a lot of those smaller IT companies are no longer existent, and won't be over the next couple of years. So just kind of my end goal there, just to wrap that piece up, is to have my own fully baked product. However, to get that thing developed the way I want it, being like super like perfectionist and not, and look, I get it. You can't be perfect when you go to market and you're a startup, right? But with that said, I want to get to that point where I have my own product that I can offer to that market and keep it going in a new way, in a new format. And have partnerships with large tech organizations. However, in the meantime, we have CyberGuard Elite, which is a per user per month pricing plan of $200. And, that's adjustable based on market conditions, right? I mean, as we all know, it's, we just keep printing more. So it just keeps changing, right? And but that's from what I've seen in the industry. That's a very reasonable price point to basically cover all your end user cyber needs. It's very competitive. It's everything from the education that we put out for free, right? And I say that because like what we're doing right now is educating an audience, right? And I always think to myself when I do this sort of thing now, I've done like 20 in the past month. It's like whenever it's getting crazy, but it's awesome. It's fun. But I always take myself back to this trip. I went to up north, Vermont, Lake Willoughby. It's called the Lucerne of the East. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I met this couple. They were a lovely couple. And I went to go grab a bagel sandwich at we were camping. We were at a campground. And I'm not a big camper. My girlfriend can set up a tent in like 30 seconds. I'm like, how do you do that? But
that's great. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. So I met this couple, and they were astonished to meet me. They were like, you have a college degree in New York and you lived here and you've they've never really left Vermont. They're very involved in their local community. And I always bring myself back to that moment because it was like, whoa, this is like, like 2/3 of the country don't live in major cities. So when I speak to an audience, I'm like, I felt like super humbled because I was like, they were like, wow, you have a college degree. Like, tell me more about this. Tell me more. I'm like, why are you so interested in me? I'm not that interesting. And I always take myself back to that moment when I'm speaking, because I don't want to assume that everybody knows, everything there is to know, right?
Sure. Have
or
you written your book
writing.
at this point?
Oh, so my book's published. Have you checked it out?
Oh, I did. But I mean, when you met this couple when you're camping, were you also like, and I published a book? Were they like falling over, like, oh my gosh, an author? Because that's a common response from people.
Yeah, they talked my ear off for like 2 hours, and they're slow talkers, and I'm a fast talker, right? I slow my voice down, so like, I'm from Boston, as you know, so
I do the exact same thing. I will talk way too fast if someone doesn't tell me to slow down.
Yeah, and I do want to be myself, but I also don't want to like, so, but so I'm cognizant of my speech, especially having worked in sales and consulting, and trying to cater to everybody. But they talked to my ear for like 2 hours about like every topic from like politics to business to family and like how I see the world. And like, they're like, do you even want a family today? I'm like, yeah, like, and it was just a very interesting conversation. I thought about going in and grabbing a 6-pack to make the time pass a little bit, but it's all right. It was awesome, but it was a good moment. I think about it often.
Is that when you almost had a little kind of epiphany moment of like, wait a minute, published author status is something I don't mean to like say take advantage of, but just understand how people see published authors and then say, wait a minute, I have something of value, because all the advice that I give to authors, I always say, you have to actually have a good product and a good book and know what you're talking about. And then if you publish, all these doors will open because you get people's attention, because most people have generally never met an author and they're like, wow, interesting. This guy must have an agent and he probably got a huge advance and he probably has professional editors. And I'm sure the president of Amazon approved his book because it was so amazing. And like, you have all these preconceptions that really aren't there anymore because anybody can publish. It's free, it's easy, it's quick. And if you do that, you join the published author club, but then you do have to have like a purpose for it. Is it for your business? Is it for your personal brand? Is it for like just a personal project? But yeah, I'm a huge publishing advocate because of the doors that open once you have it.
100%. And there's a nuance to it, and you have to be strategic and creative and don't follow the same playbook that everybody else did. I locked myself in a room for 3 months. So, there's that, right? Like going off about like my own experience and like, I mean, holy shit, man. So
was that after months of thinking about it and then all of a sudden it was like, it's on it, like you can't not work on it, or was it a little different?
I think that, well, I know this. I mean, before I go here, I just want to, I was going to go here with you in a sec. Bring me back to this talking point.
Okay.
I just want to touch that before you even get to this point, right? Something has to ignite like an insane spark in you. Okay, right? So it's like, why the hell is any like Tom, Dick, and Sally gonna write a book to begin with? What gets you up every day anyway, right? There's times in corporate America I would lay in bed and just snooze, right? So I got really passionate about cybersecurity, which if you asked me like 10 years ago, that was my thing. I'd be like, I don't know, It's like, yeah, I have like some free antivirus on my computer or whatever, and I never really got super excited about it until I started to work with a lot of money and realizing the importance cybersecurity has and how it can impact and influence minds. And so many of us are tied to our screens today that, you have to be careful of, I'll read the same news article 20 times, right? And then try and discern and come out with the best like outcome or the most actual like sense of truth. Like the cool part about a physical book is like, this is the truth. You can't change this, which is cool. So you you've had to have some sort of fire inside of you get woken, and
Did
it's
something
been
happen? Like, did you lose money through a financial scam, or it's like, oh my gosh, I have been ignoring something that if I had been paying attention to it, I would have avoided this negative event?
the pandemic. I was pissed. I knew it was bullshit. And I'll say that now. And I think it's a common consensus with people. I've 100 plus conversations a day. And look, that really made me mad. I think a lot of people, and I saw everything with the election and everything that was going on. What happened to a lot of people is they went into a state called survival mode, right? Where you just start operating on instinct. You're not second guessing, right? So that was a huge proponent of why I was able to do what I did so quickly, because I wasn't second guessing anything, right? I was just doing and running off of pure adrenaline and instinct. And then, not to say that that's a fun place to be, because you don't want to be in that state for a long. No one wants to be living in like a fearful state of the world. That's not healthy to do long term. However, I saw a real need for it. I had the experience in the field. I saw the changes happening, and I wanted to get my message out there to people, protect myself, protect my idea, and that was the result, was a book. So it's pretty cool.
And that's what led you to the 3 months of locking yourself in a room, running on adrenaline until
I
it was
moved up
done.
to New Hampshire, so I was up in the woods, man, and I was hiking and skiing and stuff, and we were all remote for a long period of time. So I removed myself from my community, my neighbors, my support system. So I was forced to do what I had to do.
Would you recommend that strategy to an aspiring author, or
like Alex Hermosi, or like who's the like Green Beret badass, because of the J.
Jocko,
that guy's nuts. Yeah. So like
there's some pretty intense guys.
Dude, yeah, that's not your like typical author, right? I mean, those are the voices that are getting a lot of attention today, with especially like young men who feel like they're now like not being able to speak up, and so I understand some of that, and I don't want anyone to be in that state unless they absolutely want to or have to. I wouldn't force anyone to go into that mode, if you will. Right.
Yeah, there are other ways to write a book, but it is a common story that I've heard from people is when it's time,
crisis. Yeah,
it's time. Like you can't really think or focus on anything else other than publishing the book. So that it kind of gets done, and at the expense of everything else, even your health kind of thing. It's like, no, I'm going to stay up late. I'm going to get up early. That happened with me. I'm not a morning person, but when I was like finishing my book, it was like, as soon as I'm awake, I'm like, I can't wait to go work on this book. Totally out of character for me, and it's just something about publishing, and but I think anybody who has a message should be considering self-publishing, because I tell everybody that I'll listen, it's free, it's easy, it gives you an instant elevated status. You'll be incredibly proud of yourself for doing it, and if you're using it for business or personal branding, it works as a great lead magnet. Getting potentially speaking gigs or podcast spots, whatever it might be. Having a book is a huge and fairly easy differentiator. Which I think you've seen some of the benefits, of that. But again, was that like kind of accidental, or were you like, I can't believe how easy it is to get a speaking gig these days?
No, I've actually like always had it in the back of my head. It just came to the fore when I had to do it, when I went into that survival mode. And I in version 2 of my book, I joke about a time when I was 18 with Nick, founder of Book Thinkers. Like, dude, we got to write a book someday. We're too bright. We're bright. We're ambitious. Like, we were ahead of other kids in the class, and we were neighbors and became good friends. We were very different, right? I was introverted, techie, right? So we can talk about that quickly after. Don't want to run out of time, but yeah. So we always talked about it. We're like, we want a better life. We want to, we want to do something big. And I think that came to the fore when crisis hit, and you leverage your friends, you leverage your network that you've built over the years. And I was fortunate to have that. So it was cool.
Well, I think in hindsight, it's going to be surprising that you published before Nick, being as much of a book guy that Nick is. So yeah, Nick's book came out this year, and knowing you guys knew each other back then, I was like, if I had to guess, I'd be like, oh, well, clearly Nick's the book guy. He's going to publish first.
Well, I called him and asked. I was like, hey man, would you mind? Because I know we've like talked about this forever, right? And I'm like, as long as we go to Japan together, like first, then we're cool. And he's like, cool. But I put him like on the first page of inside the cover. So like huge shout out, right? So like, it was like, that's cool. I was like, thanks to my friends and family. And then a special thanks to bookmakers, so that works well. Right. And, when I was booking our calendar session, I saw our strategic marketing session planned where we kind of put some thoughts together on the go-to-market strategy, which is cool because I had some interesting thoughts and he had some, we kind of bounced them off each other. So it was a fun process. And, it was a great way to spend that extra time during the pandemic, right? Make good use of it rather than just sit around and scroll all the time.
Well, how long do you think your book has been online? Do you know that off the top of your head?
Yeah, I believe May 2021 was when it was released. The audiobook is more recent. The version 2, the hardcover is more recent.
Yeah, you released it at $0, and that's when you kind of peaked in sales rank 1,044 days ago.
That was
May 2021. Crazy. You hit sales rank of top 3,000 on all of Amazon. Did you know they banked all this information and you can look it up if you want?
I didn't. I hope you're not trying to like expose me. I'm not.
No, these are all good things.
Like I don't have the bankroll to pay off New York Times, so like I had to get creative, man,
Well, let's double check the best. That was I was looking at your Kindle version, I believe. And just for a little friendly jab at Nick, let's see where his Kindle version peaked. He got you. He got to top 2,000. Very similar. That's very similar, rank, to be honest.
You can only improve on what's already been done, So I would hope that he did better, right?
I think he better have. Like, come on. You're literally a book marketer. So.
Well, now I'm trying to beat him on podcasts because, in good competitive spirit, right? And I'm a good sport. I never thought I would be doing this stuff. I was like a gamer techie guy, and I really had to work hard at the soft skills. And I talk about that in my book. I'm like, I could just see soft skills becoming the most important skill again. Like we're, with everything going on in the world and the lack of ability that I see especially younger generations with being so glued to their phones. Like, I was probably the first generation that grew up with devices in hand, like getting my first cell phone at like 10,
Yep.
And, so
you have a unique perspective.
Right. And, I can see the damage it does like kills ability to focus. Later on in life, I got the ADHD diagnosis and, I think, and it's super common, man. It's like 8 million or so people, but it's a superpower. And if I'll hook you up if this goes well, it's going great. But I'll hook you up with John Brink, who was one of my favorite recent conversations. He has like 30,000 subs on YouTube now, and he's doing really well. But super interesting man to talk to. 84, still going. He just sent me 3 books, and one of his books is ADHD Unlocked, and I've started to skim through it. And I really like his perspective. He didn't get diagnosed till he was like in his mid 50s, like 54.
Oh wow!
I think he said, yeah.
I can imagine when he looked back, like he gets the diagnosis, he's like, "Oh, for Pete's sake, that would explain 50 years of,
But he was an entrepreneur that built $100 million lumber business, and he's like he's still a bodybuilder, and he runs it like he's just like, I'm sure you are this way too, but like runs in so many different directions that you just have your own way of managing it. because you're like, you're on one thing, like I'll be talking to you and then I'll have to jump on to something else. And like, and, but that's like a superpower for entrepreneurs because, that's like, we learn how to deal with that. And that's literally what being an entrepreneur is like just constant like noise and distraction. So, if you've been dealing with that forever, like it's a asset, not a liability.
Well, I wrote down, because I didn't want to forget it, a soft skills as like it's almost like another book that you could write. And again, from your perspective of saying, look, I grew up with it. I know what you're talking about. I've suffered from the same, having a phone for this amount of time. Here's the science behind it. Here's the research. And I've been trying to think a little bit ahead of when you get into like NFTs and AI, and like you can't tell necessarily what's real in terms of images and video versus saying like what skill sets are going to be valuable in the future, whether it's long soft skills. And I would kind of throw in like authenticity and transparency. I would struggle to see how AI could really catch up to that like over a long period of time. And it's,
Yeah.
I don't know if you're thinking about another book, but that might be something that flows out from as a second version of your book almost.
Yeah, no, I have it written up here, right? And I think your life changes so much after publishing. So get ready. My life got a lot more interesting. I've made some sacrifices. It's been a roller coaster ride, but I have awesome stories now. So it's like wicked cool. And it's going to just be more and more interesting as I get that published and it comes out like we're talking now. And you could, I was on another podcast, Unleash the Knowledge, which is in the book space, and Owen, who I've met, he's a great person. And we, he had an interesting thought. Could you compile all the language from your podcast, like have AI sort it, add in your own elements or thoughts, and then you could publish that, go on shows and talk. And
you're making it more complicated than it needs to be. You can just take your top 10 episodes, transcribe it, and publish it. Now, of course, if you want to, you can edit it and add things to it and whatever you want. But I've recommended that to a lot of podcasters who are like, oh, I can never publish. I'm like, you have 100 episodes. Take your top 10 episodes, 20, whatever it is. Transcribe them yourself or pay someone else. Publish them just so you have that product, just so you're able to kind of leverage and just understand the process. Whether it's a bestseller or not doesn't matter. But because once you publish, you're like, oh, that was easy. Oh, I see how people are responding to it. Oh, I see how I can give this away at events. And everybody is thrilled to death to get a physical product from me that costs $2. Okay, now I'm thinking, what's next? What else can I write? How else can I provide value to people and scale it through like publishing and distribution and prime eligible products?
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And we all know, and especially me with my background in cybersecurity, things can be taken down. Like you don't work for that company anymore. They just wiped you off the internet. They took your account offline. Oh yeah, that Gmail account with your @company.com, everything it's tied to is now wiped away. So all that work you did is gone. So great. What are you going to do now? Well, did you publish a book? No. Okay. Where's the proof?
Amazon
you didn't
can take
do that.
the book down. I haven't seen them do that, but it's
I advise everyone now, you need to be on multiple grids, multiple platforms. You want to be publishing everywhere, and be a moving target and move fast. I strongly encourage that. You're nimble. Odds are, if you're starting out, you're going to be a solo person, and take all the help you can get, and just run like hell, because that's what it's going to take, right? Especially if people find out you're writing a book, they're going to be like, is that about me? What's going in, and what are the contents, right? So a lot to think about.
I do put that pressure on myself sometimes. If I come up with an idea for a book, I'm like, oh, the timing is right for this, or like, I have a unique or again advantageous perspective on this, and I'm like, I got to get this going. Otherwise, someone else is going to do this, and someone else is going to be able to take the credit for something. And I'm like, oh, but no way, I was doing that like 3 years ago. And I rarely reminded people of this, but I think it's important that people remember that Amazon is not exclusive. So you can publish on Amazon. They don't own the rights to it. They're basically licensing the right to publish it and pay you a royalty for it. You can't always publish somewhere else. So if you do lose Amazon, it's a huge blow because it's the #1 channel. but it's not exclusive. But also hedge your bets. Also know that you're farming someone else's land, and that Amazon is not your friend. Amazon loves their customers, but they don't love their sellers. They don't love their authors. And I say that as someone who's been an advocate with Amazon for over 20 years. That Amazon, no, they put their customer first. So if you do anything that provides a bad experience to the customer, you are at risk. So make sure you provide quality products and no
Right.
goofing around.
And that was a big thing for me. Yeah, no, and I understand. But you want Amazon to compete with Barnes and Noble. You want Amazon to compete with Craig's Books, right? You want Amazon to compete with just, and just like I would in my ad strategy, right? I want YouTube Shorts, Reels, and TikTok fighting each other. I don't want one dominant player because we've seen what a control on information can do, right? And that was the reason I published my book to begin with, right? So that's the reason. Let's go back, a few years now and realize why I did this.
Right? Your book, just from the surface level of it, really isn't positioned as a watch out, be careful. That's not, if I'm looking for it, do I need to be worried about only being on one social media platform? Like your book doesn't stand out as that cautionary tale, but is that kind of some of the content that's included that's on the inside?
We're heading in this direction that I foresaw when I wrote it and published it, which is it's going to get way worse. And now it's just going to escalate. Now we have an election coming up and we have a lot of things happening with China and right. So it's becoming this, okay, great. It's a sales opportunity. I can kind of say, hey, you have old equipment, you have old computers, got to go, right? Old software running, cyber attack could happen to you. Not anymore. Now it's like North Korea just took your company offline. Pay 10 Bitcoin if you want to turn it back on. Like, what are you going to do? Right. So, now it's like the cyber war, whereas like it was not like that 3 years ago. And I'm doing everything in my, ability to help fight that, drive resources to that, speak up, right? I didn't want to go out and put my face all over the place. Like, I'm doing my part in the equation, trying to help, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't want to cause panic and fear because I know what that's like. Like I know, and you don't want to put people I don't want people to feel like they're totally unsafe. I just want them to be aware. I just want to be aware, educated on this topic. Some people might not even be online. It's just the reality. Like that takes me back to the Northern Vermont or, whatever. Like there's parts of this country people don't go online. There's 2 million Amish people. Maybe they'll see my book. That's a great market, right? I'll sell my book to 2 million Amish people who have never used technology in a digital sense. They have their own technology.
But they could change their rules, and all of a sudden they have one computer, two computers. Like who knows? Do you find that this is one thing that's, I don't want to say frustrated me, but I've thought about it a lot in the sense of to get people to really change often takes a negative traumatic event, right? To actually have some major change in a short amount of time, divorce, bankruptcy, death of a relative, is all of a sudden that changes them. And I haven't found the equivalent of something that's not a negative traumatic event other than saying, look, that change simply takes time. To like, wait a minute, do I need to take the cybersecurity stuff seriously? Oh, I saw something in the news 3 weeks later. Oh, I heard about my friend 3 months later. Oh, now I'm going to actually take this serious. Or do you find if you go to somebody and say, look, this isn't scare tactic stuff. However, the world's changing. Here's my book. It's got some recommendations in it. And people take you serious, or do they put it off because they're like, yeah, I've heard about that, but that's not going to happen to me.
Well, you have to look at it from the buyer's shoes, which is typically like a CFO or controller or operations person who's responsible for cutting budgets. So you
Instead
need
of
to
a
speak
Vermont
to,
camper, is that a
right? Yeah. So that's my target. Yeah. Right. So it's like with the book, I want everyone to be aware and realize that if you're not putting your business online, there's risk to that too, right? So it's kind of like a double-edged sword in that sense. So look, I want people to go online. I want consumers to be able to read and digest the knowledge and information here. However, in most of my conversations from experience, dealing with the person responsible for the budget, the finances. They're responsible for cutting budget, making expenses, minimizing expenses. You come in and you say, hey, you need to spend X amount, right? Let's say you have, 200 times 100 people, right? You can see how it goes up per month, it exponential year over year, right? And you typically plan for 3 to 5 years of longevity with the customer. And they're like, what the heck is this? Like, we're fine. We're just trying to get to next fiscal year. Like, so
nothing's happened in the past. So like, what are they worried
it
about?
becomes like this weird insurance pitch. And you're like, yeah, but what if like this does happen? You can't pay your employees. You can't pay your vendors. Like, you can't operate. You can't keep the lights on. Like, so you have that pitch, but you also have I don't want to just be doing that. I want to say, hey, there's also AI. There's also Copilot. Like, if you haven't gone to like 365 or cloud apps yet, you need to be there. I would say that 90% are, right? With the pandemic, they've had to with remote working. But we got to button these things up. We got to button these systems up. We have to monitor and manage and have eyes on screen watching the cloud apps. And there's a reason why private golf courses exist, and leadership and board members typically have their conversations on the course, right? Because those apps are oftentimes accessed by multiple people in the company. They're the third party vendor. So like if you're using HubSpot or Gmail, Google, they have eyes into your conversations and what you're doing. So if you have a massive hedge fund, private equity firm, whatever, financial institution, as I refer to it in my book, they damn right they have a big stake in all of these companies. And if they want to pull records, they can. So you need somebody like me standing in their way.
That makes a lot more sense. So your book is really not positioned for just, I want to get this book in as many people's hands as possible, versus this book needs to be in the right people's hands, depending on their position in the company and the responsibilities that they have. Are you using it that way to try to connect
now
with?
I am. Yes, yeah. I pivoted because when I first released it, I wanted as many as possible to protect myself. I literally was guerrilla marketing it and putting it in book swaps and book stands and churches and schools and wherever I could, because I didn't want it to get destroyed. And quite frankly, I felt like we were there as a country, and some people felt that way. And I was worried it was going to get taken offline. And I needed that book in as many hands as possible, as quickly as possible.
Well, I can help you with that. There's a few Kindle options that people honestly just don't know about. I'm assuming you're in the Kindle Select program because you did make it free when it first launched. But of course, you can make it $0. And then, of course, a free download is quite easy. But you can also drop to 99 cents. And then you can buy as many copies as you want. And you'll have redemption links. So if you buy 500 copies, you'll now have 500 different unique redemption links that you can either use for lead generation, lead magnets, just give out whatever you want to do. And then, of course, let the price go back up to $4.99 or even $9.99, to where now you're giving away a $5 or $10 product on Amazon. And you're giving away for free. It'll cost you 99 cents, but, it depends if you're building an email list.
Don't tell too many people. Oh, man.
I tell everybody to listen, and nobody does it.
I like it.
And one thing I told Nick, this is like his favorite thing that I think I've ever told him. I was like, Amazon packages have a 100% open rate. He's like, oh, my gosh, you're right. I was like, everybody gets, you open that Amazon package. Doesn't matter if you forgot that you ordered something or someone sent it to your house, you open it. So, I mean, you can send your own book at cost in an Amazon package to literally any address in 8 of the most populous countries in the world, very inexpensively. And sometimes I recommend adding a second book or adding a second product. Like if the CFO likes barbecue sauce, you find some barbecue sauce in a book, just shows up and you track it.
I love that idea. And we all know that CFOs like to be buttered up.
Sure.
But when you're starting out, you can only do so much, right? You can only entertain so much. And you can only do that and go to so many meetings before your bank account gets uncomfortable. So you have to manage that responsibly. I love your idea. Chris said it first, folks. So that's a really bright strategy. However, as the cyber guy, from my point of view, I wouldn't recommend always giving your personal address. Maybe you get a PO box out there because there's crazies.
Hey,
there's crazies.
I've got you solved on that. Check this out. The people don't know about it. If you think nobody knows about this, nobody knows about this one. This only works on the mobile app. So you can go on the mobile app and find your book on Amazon, add to the cart, and then in the gift options, you say send this as a gift. And if you have the email address or the phone number, you put that in, and then Amazon will take it from there. And they'll send an email or text message or an email saying, hey, Nick has bought this for you as a gift. Please give us your address, and they'll ship it to you. Prime eligible. So you don't even need their address anymore, as long as you have a phone number or an email address.
There's your secure third party, and that's what I do. I'm right. I'm that.
Would you trust Amazon to do it for you, though? Amazon being the third party. Now they know the address and they know what you're up to. They know you sent a book to this person on this date.
Yeah, I mean, they're publicly traded. I'm community traded. So, I mean, so it's, yeah, I mean, I would hope so, but if you
don't have the address or someone doesn't want to give you the address, there is that option. And of course, you're just sending it to a company.
I do really want some of your artwork, though. I really like that, and it'd be cool to see my audiobook.
I made you a deal.
I'll literally.
I will get to it.
Good. We'll clip this thing up once you go live on YouTube. And remember, speed is everything. And once it's out there, I have some cool AI tools, and I could help clip or post. I got 55,000 on Instagram, like
awesome.
7 or 18
it'll be
on
fun.
TikTok. So I'm happy to spread the message and look forward to keeping the conversation alive. This is a great way to meet people and network too. So don't discourage that. It's not just a show. And I hope we keep in touch. And I'm off to the next one. So
same here. I really appreciate this. We'll do another one. I had a whole list of questions that we kind of bounced around and we didn't get to all of them. That's okay. But definitely people who want more information about what you're doing and your book, where's the best place to find you? Are you Googleable? Is that the best way?
Yeah, you can just Google my name. It's right there in the bottom of the screen. I think that's great. You'll see my link tree and Lorizio, right? That's my app. And just dive in, check out the book, check out my page, and happy to connect.
Yeah, no, sounds good. And thanks to Nick for connecting us. I'm sure we'll be in touch. All right. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Authorpreneur Podcast. If you'd like more information about this episode's guest, you can find links to their books, websites, and social media profiles in the show notes and video description. If you're an author or business owner who's interested in learning more about how you can use books and published author status to market and grow your business or personal brand, or if you're an aspiring author looking for more information about the publishing process, you can find more information and request an author audit at authorpreneur.com. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, or if you'd like to recommend someone, please reach out via email to chris@authorpreneur.com. Remember, a book is just a book, but when it's your book, it's an asset. #Authorpreneur.